Stranded. Written by Ginny Graham Scott. Exterior, mountaintop in Tibet. Day. The setting is the top of a cold, snowy mountain where a private plane carrying 5 tourists has crashed, and the pilot is dead. 2 passengers are dead, and the plane is running out of oxygen, food, and water after 3 days. A search party has still not found the plane. William realizes that his son Matt, lying outside the plane, is dead, and he stands up in shock.
My God, Matt. Why? Why?
As William looks at Matt on the ground, his clothes strewn around him, he realizes he can't do anything more. William runs back to the plane. He knocks on the door frantically.
Let me in! Let me in!
At first, there's no response. William realizes he could be trapped outside the plane and knocks even harder.
Please, don't leave me out here.
But no response. William knocks a few times more weakly.
Come on, please. Open up. Don't let me die out here. Don't let me.
Out of breath and exhausted, William sinks to the ground. The door finally opens. Ken and Dan stand inside by the door and see William lying in the snow.
My God.
Ken and Dan reach down to pull up William, but he's too far down to reach. Ken jumps out of the plane and lands in the snow beside William.
I've got this.
Ken bends over and pulls up William by the shoulders. Dan grabs William's legs, and with Ken pushing and Dan pulling, they drag William back into the plane. They shut the door and drag William into the aisle near the door, a little beyond where Mary is lying under a blanket. Ken slaps William's face gently as Dan pushes on his chest.
Hey, buddy, come on, wake up. You're safe now.
Yeah, you're going to be okay. We've got you.
Finally, William rouses. He gazes up and sees the blurred faces of Ken and Dan above him.
What? Where am I? What happened?
As Ken and Dan talk to William, their faces come into focus.
You were outside for a while.
You passed out, but you're okay now.
William sits up and suddenly remembers.
But Matt is...
William breaks down and begins sobbing.
Matt is dead. He's dead. I couldn't stop him. He kept running and then...
William can barely speak. He's sobbing so much.
Then he began taking off his clothes. He thought he was in a beautiful, sunny land, a paradise. But I couldn't convince him it wasn't real. Not real. And now my son is dead. Dead.
Dan reaches over and puts his arm around William. He pulls William to himself to comfort him.
We know. We understand. And we're here for you. We're so sorry. So very sorry for your loss.
William continues to sob for a short time. Finally, he tries to stop crying and pull himself together, though he feels an overwhelming sense of guilt.
I really tried to save him. I did. I tried to convince him. I tried to tell him that what he was seeing wasn't real. But he didn't believe me. He wouldn't listen. Then we took off his clothes like it was suddenly very hot. I don't know. Maybe I should have prayed harder. I wasn't praying then, just trying to hold him and stop him, and then...
William breaks up and sobs and falls against Dan's chest.
Look, don't beat yourself up. You did what you could. Matt did what he wanted to do. No one could have stopped him. No one could.
William continues sobbing as Dan holds him. Ken, sitting nearby, looks skeptical. He gazes around the plane, sees Mary's body on the floor, and looks toward the cabin.
And then there were 3.
Dan looks up and glares at Ken.
Are you crazy? This man just lost his son, and that's what you have to say?
Look, I'm just saying, 3 of us left, so now we've got to pull together to do what we can to survive and hope someone comes for us in time. So now there are 3 of us. What's the problem with saying the truth?
Dan continues to glare at Ken for a few moments. then turns back to William.
Come on, buddy. Just think about how we're going to make it. Don't give up hope.
Though William gradually calms down, he continues to cling to Dan for a while. Then he pulls back, sits up in the aisle, leans against the chair, and begins to pray.
Dear God, I know you have been testing me, testing us, but please show us mercy and send us help. Please send us help.
Ken and Dan return to their seats. As Ken writes in his journal, Dan tries to go to sleep, but he hears William still praying and becomes increasingly annoyed.
Hey, buddy, can you do this quietly? I've been trying to go to sleep and forget what's been happening, if just for a little while.
But God needs to hear this. He needs to know how his children are suffering. He needs to hear our plea so he'll answer our call.
Well, I don't think God's listening or cares. We're on our own up here, and if anyone's coming, it's because people who sent us here realize we're missing. God has nothing to do with it.
How can you say that? He's always been there for me in my time of need.
Well, God sure isn't here for us now, and he sure didn't help you save Matt when he jumped out of the plane.
No. God was testing me, and I didn't pray hard enough. But now, if I pray hard enough, he'll hear me. He'll let others know they need to find us. He'll send help.
Bullshit. Look, come on, lay off it. Give it a rest. Just shut up. Please, shut up.
William becomes even more angry. He stands up and smacks Dan.
What? You want to shut me up while I'm talking to God? While I'm trying to save us? How could you?
William smacks Dan again. Dan reacts angrily and slaps William back.
Oh, so that's how you want to play it? Well, take this. See if God can help you now.
Soon, Dan and William are fighting, while Ken has dozed off from writing in his journal. As William pushes Dan back, Dan falls and hits his head on the back of a seat. He falls, clutching his head, as blood gushes from it.
Oh my God, no, you bastard, you bastard, you bastard.
Dan's words fade away as he loses consciousness. William bends over him.